It's a great pleasure to welcome you here this morning. And I wanted to start by doing something that often happens at the very end of an event. But in case it doesn't work out the way I hope, I'll get the benefit of it at the beginning, and that is to thank someone who has worked so hard to put it together all along, who is a member of the Norman Lear Center team. So I just wanted to thank Kira Poplowski for all that goes right. Our topic today is, as you know, the tyranny of 18 to 49, and perhaps that title deserves a question mark at the end, because it's entirely possible that some of those here on the panel or some of you here in the room don't think that's an established fact, and so please rest assured that we're going to allow that idea to be robustly contested during the course of the morning. The drill is that we'll have a brief talk by our keynote speaker, who's written a paper which you have in the packet with you. And unfortunately, from one point of view, he won't have the opportunity to read the entirety of the paper. Fortunately, from another point of view, he won't have an opportunity to read from the entirety of the paper. You will, nevertheless, get a good sense of his thesis, and during the course of the morning, we'll have lots of chance for interplay among the panelists, and also after that, with you. I hope we can open this into a discussion. I'd like to introduce some of the panelists and then our keynote speaker. Let me just start ranging from this direction. We are fortunate to have people both on the panel and in the room who have different roles in the ecology of commerce and entertainment. And as a wonderful illustration of that, we have somebody whose resume is far older than his age. And in this case, we have a gentleman who has covered so many different aspects of the entertainment business, advertising, and marketing side for different publications. And he now is the, I'm trying to get his exact title, it's amazingly distinguished. Is it, it's on one of these pieces of paper, Vice President, Publishing and Editorial Director of the Ad Age Group. Ad Age is one of the Bibles of the advertising industry. The Ad Age Group is an umbrella for more of those publications. We are thrilled that he came here from Chicago. The topic we're discussing is of great interest to the marketing and advertising community, and I can't think of having someone better prepared to talk about that than our guest, David Klein. Please welcome him. Our next panelist has also an astonishing resume. The aspect of it that I am personally most interested in is his work on Shakespeare. Whether or not we get a chance to talk about that today remains to be seen, although some say that Shakespeare's late, mature plays are among his best. But he has the distinction of having been a network executive at CBS, NBC, ABC, and PAX. So he's seen it all from the point of view of the buyer. He's also seen it all from the point of view of an author and producer. So he has been both tyrant and victim in the course of his career. He has a distinguished educational background. You can read about him and the other panelists in greater detail in your brochures. Please welcome a great catch for us, Steve Sohmer. Proving that the average lifetime includes room for about 7.5 careers is our next panelist down the road, who has had a number of amazing careers, both as a journalist for the Sacramento Bee, in the California college system, and now serves as a member of the executive council in California of an organization whose magazine, I'm interested to learn, which used to be called Modern Maturity, has been renamed My Generation. Please welcome Ann Reed. And finally, again, speaking of the diversity of viewpoints, we have somebody who has represented a number of products that advertise, and he has been a distinguished figure at advertising agencies around the country. His title now is Senior Vice President, Group Managing Director at McCann-Erickson in Los Angeles. He has had responsibility for the Miller Lite campaign. He currently has responsibility for the Nestle brand, and I'd like you please to welcome Durk Barnhill. There are a number of distinguished members of the audience. I'm tempted to say you know who you are and leave it at that, but I don't dare, because there were a few in particular that I wanted to single out, and one I'll start with in particular, who has the distinction of being my boss, the Dean of the Annenberg School for Communication, Jeffrey Cowan. We also have with us what is your title, Bob? President, publisher of the Hollywood Reporter, Bob Dowling. And we also have the national president of the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, John Connolly. There are many more others of you, and I hope that in the course of the morning I get a chance to recognize you and include you in the discussion. Our topic today is topical. I read in the Wall Street Journal just the other day that the Nielsen Company has announced that it is going to increase the use of so-called people meters, so that they will be able shortly in 10 major markets around the country to do the regular reporting of what age group is watching programs at any time. That used to be a possibility in local markets only during the sweeps period, but now it's going to be the case in the 10 biggest markets in the country. When I was growing up, the motto of my generation was never trust anyone over 30. Now the motto seems to be never entertain or inform anyone over 49, or at least so is a contention of our keynote speaker this morning. We've had the great pleasure at the Lear Center of having him as a senior fellow for these past 3 years, and one of the great opportunities is to exchange ideas and do something about them. And a year ago, he said to me, do you know what I want to look at and do something with the Lear Center on? And that is, and he paused dramatically and said, 18 to 49. I didn't quite hear the 2, and so I thought it was 1849, and I was desperately trying to remember what happened in the barricades in Paris, knowing there must be something that I should get. But then he reset it, I understood, I got it, and I was thrilled. He is a frequent contributor to the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times. He's on a program on the beloved Fox network. He is the author of many books, including a biography of Walter Winchell, An Empire of Their Own, How the Jews Invented Hollywood, Life the Movie, How Entertainment Conquered Reality. He's working right now on a biography of Walt Disney, which happily brings him here frequently to look at the Disney archives. And it's my great pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Neal Gabler.
I've been told to be brief, because there might be some older people in the audience who will doze off, I imagine, or over 49. So I will try. But I wonder, is anybody here over 49? Well, let me say, right at the outset, I have absolutely no interest in addressing you. Your listening to this speech is irrelevant to me. If you would like to leave, it would leave me with an audience that I would really like to engage. As far as I'm concerned, you are history. You are old. You are ancient. You are the past. I would like to address the future. You are on the trash heap of history. Goodbye. That is the attitude that virtually everyone in the entertainment industry has about you. They view you with contempt. They view you as if you have a disease and they don't want to catch it. They have no interest in you. They don't want to make movies for you, television programs for you, CDs for you, magazines for you, newspapers for you, no interest whatsoever. And all one has to do is take a look at this culture, and one can see that this is a youth-driven culture. The rest of us are just living in it. CNN headline news. Now, we all know that younger people don't watch the news. The network news programs skew to about 62 years old average age, which is why you see pharmaceutical ads throughout, and nothing but pharmaceutical ads. I mean, you'd think that all of these people are just about on their deathbeds if you're watching the news. But as you may remember, CNN headline news came up with a great idea that they, in order to attract younger viewers, would put zippers across the bottom and boxes over the screen, and they would get younger news readers because this is a way to attract that audience that isn't interested in watching the news anyway. In short, they needed to be stimulated, and this is a way that was going to stimulate them. Now, that is true, as I say, virtually across the board. If you look at the movies that get made, they're by and large made for a younger demographic. Television programs, off the top of my head this morning, as I was preparing for this talk, I said to myself, can I think, this is granted unscientific, but can I think of a single television program on network television that has a protagonist over 50 years old? And the only one that came to mind was Law and Order with Sam Waterston and Jerry Orbach. I couldn't think off the top of my head of another. We live in a dictatorship that is only slightly more benign than the dictatorship of Saddam Hussein, but that is much less likely to be toppled. It is a dictatorship of the 18 to 49 demographic cohort. Now, the first thing that may come to mind as you think about this is just common sense. 18 to 49, this is the tyrant? What in God's name does an 18-year-old in high school have to do with a 49-year-old? How in the world could this tyrant have anything in common, anything consistent from one end of the demographic cohort to the other? They don't have anything in common in terms of income, values, religion, region. It's over 120 million people we're talking about. And I think that any statistician would tell you that this is a idiotic demographic cohort to target. Because what do you target about it? And yet, because all we hear about is 18 to 49, 18 to 49, 18 to 49, I was kind of amused when the New York Times reported the ratings in the last sweeps period. And you may, if you read the Times, may remember that the headline was, so-and-so tops 18 to 49. And if you buried into the article, you found that, CBS had the highest aggregate viewership. But, boy, you had to read with a microscope to find that. All they cared about was that 18 to 49. Now, since people, 120 million people have virtually nothing in common except for the fact that they have to live in this country and possibly watch television occasionally, the advertising industry and broadcasters have had to create a fiction about this group, a fiction that makes them consistent. And it is to this fiction that our culture is directed. The fiction is, of course, as you can see from the example of CNN headline news, that they need to be stimulated all the time, which is another reason why you people over 50 don't even have to listen to this, because you can read my speech. But if you're under 50, presumably you won't read. I mean, we have to make a movie of the speech, I guess, and even then, it can't be very long. A musical. They love sex, as if people over 50 swear off of it. They have to see things very quickly, the whole notion of MTV. If anything lingers, forget it. They don't like to see old people. They want to see people who are their age. And one could go on and on and on, because 1849 is not only a tyranny because of the kinds of programming and movies and CDs and whatever that we get, but it's a tyranny because there's a style that's assumed this 120 million people all subscribe to. It's patently ludicrous. And yet, it is the single most important factor in determining what we see, what we hear, and what we read. And I will tell you, newspapers are not immune, publishing houses are not immune, magazines are not immune. Nothing in this culture is immune to the tyranny of the 1849 demographic. Now, briefly, I will tell you why advertisers and broadcasters will tell you that they appeal to this demographic. They will say that there are two main reasons. One, that younger people are less brand loyal. They won't buy the same product again and again and again. And therefore, if you advertise to them, you can reach them, whereas older consumers cannot be reached because they are set in their ways. Those older people are always watching Lawrence Welk, and Singing It Depends. And, those people, they will buy the same thing again and again and again because you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and we all know this. So these younger consumers are not brand loyal, and therefore it makes more sense to advertise to them. And the second reason we hear is that these consumers are scarce, because younger consumers watch less television than older ones. And therefore, they are a commodity rare, like a nugget of gold or a diamond. You have to really work to reach them, to sell them things. Now, in the course of this discussion, I hope that we will knock both of these ideas into a cocked hat, because number one, study after study after study after study, and you can find this in my paper, and I cite I don't know how many of them, show that older consumers are no more brand loyal than younger ones, so the argument is absolutely insane. The second argument, that older consumers watch more television and therefore are less desirable, is a rather odd argument. When you just think about it logically. You commandeer the entire medium of television to target people who don't want to watch television. Well, at the same time, you ignore the people who do want to watch television. This is a very peculiar business. It seems to me a little backwards. But if you really are interested in scarcity, if that's what you really want, as James Serwicki said in The New Yorker, then why don't you make all of your programming for a shepherd in Uzbekistan? Because there's real scarcity. Now, obviously, advertisers would come back, this shepherd doesn't have enough money. So what we want are people who don't watch TV who have a lot of money. I know this is illogical, but follow it. This is how the country operates. But in point of fact, it is the older consumer who has the money, the older consumer who controls 55% of the discretionary income in this country, the older consumer who spends more in absolute dollars per capita, the older consumer who has a larger share of the aggregate spending, and one could go on and on and on. So why then? If these arguments don't seem to be very sound, why? And I might just add here that all of the arguments that one could make for advertiser-supported media wouldn't operate for non-advertiser supported media anyway. You can say you have to do all these things because television is an advertiser-supported medium, and therefore you have to attract this audience and whatever. But now what is the excuse for the movie or for the recording industry? Movies aren't advertised. You don't go to the movies and in the middle of the film see an ad that's directed to you because you're young. Why are they all directed to a younger demographic? And I might add parenthetically that, as in most things, movie executives are generally smarter than television executives and have and are more attuned to what their audience is. And indeed, there is a disproportionate number of younger viewers who go to movies, which is not true, of course, for television. So one could say that, well, they are trying to target that audience. That also kind of cancels the self-fulfilling prophecy argument, which is, if you're only making movies for young people, then how can you possibly expect to get older viewers into the theater? But let's put that aside for a moment. And let's ask ourselves, why is it that this country, which has roughly 40% of the population over 50 and growing wildly, a 40% that has most of the income, most of the disposable income, spends more money, why is this culture then tyrannized by this other demographic cohort, or at least by the fiction of this demographic cohort? And my answer would be that it is not economics. It is psychology. Almost every one of the decision makers in the film industry, the television industry, the magazine industry, the CD industry, newspapers, publishing, is over 50 years old. And yet, these are the very turncoats, one might say, who are directing this culture toward the younger demographic. And I would submit, and obviously there is no way of proving this scientifically, but here's my hypothesis. Nobody, particularly nobody in the media, wants to be old. Nobody wants to associate with being old. Nobody wants the disease of age on them. It's worse than SARS. And so, for their own psychological benefit, they create a world in which they are forever young, in which they are forever associated with youth, in which they are with it. In my era, the old people wearing their bell-bottoms and with their flower shirts. Well, we've got an entire media empire in this country run by people in their bell-bottoms and their flower shirts in the deepest possible denial that they are over 50. Thank you.
Neal kept his promise to hold your attention span. This is the right moment, I think, to have an advertisement, and I would like at this point to add another thank you and acknowledgement. The panel today is under the sponsorship of one of the Lear Center's 12 projects. This project is called Creativity, Commerce, and Culture. It's funded by a grant from the Center for the Public Domain, and the two other senior fellows of the Lear Center who are here today are the directors of that project, so I wanted to thank and acknowledge Lori Racine and David Bollier. One of the projects that they're working on now is a fascinating project about intellectual property in the fashion industry called Ready to Share. So please watch this space for more news on that front. And I also wanted to thank two other members of the Lear staff who have worked on the materials that you have in your packet. There is an extensive bibliography, issue paper, and timeline, and the author of those pieces is also serving as rapporteur today. Patrick Reed, thank you. And is Johanna Blakely here? There she is. Thank you, Johanna. I'm going to ask each of our panelists from their point of view to comment on the inflammatory thesis that Neal has lobbed into this dry tinder. And I'd like to start by asking someone who is actively in the entertainment industry and has been in so many roles. Steve Sohmer, does this strike you as reality?
Well, the fact...
Pull your mic. Oh, thank you.
This comes, of course, not as news to anyone who's worked in the entertainment business, particularly in television.
Can you hear, Steve? Barely. All right, just pull it closer.
I will do that. I do. I have a non-lethal cold. It's a cold, not old. And my career in the television business is 25 years plus. And I remember when we were putting together All in the Family, nobody was concerned about the demo of Archie and Edith. If you remember that those shows that came on then, Alice, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, if you think about the demo of the adults in those, this business of 18 to 49s had not become relevant. And indeed, those followed a group of shows which included Green Acres, which was, what was his name, and Eddie Albert, and the woman,
David
Gabler, who I think then were older than I am now, And nowadays, if you lap resolve 25 years, I'll take you to a meeting that I was in 8 days ago, in which I'm working on a new series with a producer, and the hero, who is 30 years old, and you type that 3 with you hesitate to hit that 3 key when you put the age of the person in. And they said, well, he should have a love interest, and it should be an older woman. And somebody at the end of the table said, what about Ann Archer? Now, Ann Archer is a great actress, movies, television, happens to be a personal friend of mine, and the fellow over here said, oh, my God, Ann Archer. No, older woman, I mean like she's 31. And that's an absolute literal portrayal of that. So I can just say I'm looking forward to this discussion, because I think I'm going to learn more about this world that I've been, this sauce that I've been swimming in for 25 years.
Let me ask now, Durk, from the point of view of someone who is dealing with clients and creating these campaigns to appear in this, what's your reaction to what you've heard?
Well, 18 to 49 year-old demo might be where we start as a marketing company or as an advertising agency, but any advertising agency worth their fee is not going to end there. We don't really look at demographics as much anymore as we look at psychographics. An example I can give is Taster's Choice, for instance, which is one of the brands that I handle for Nestle. Now, the fact of the matter is that the majority of our target audience that are drinking instant coffee these days is over that demographic, is over that 49-year-old demographic. So when we are buying television, we actually buy a higher or older demographic. But that's not really the point. We get more detailed than that and get more information than that, and we know that 75% of the cups of coffee in this country are consumed before the hour of 10 o'clock in the morning. So we're not talking about owning the 18 to 49 demographic. When we are buying our media, we want to own the morning. So, for instance, if we go buy a network, we're not going to buy just network television. We're going to buy the Today Show and try to dig deeper into that. When we're looking at target audiences on our creative briefs that we're writing our marketing strategies, we don't actually just talk about demographics. We rarely put demographics onto to the pieces of paper that we're giving to our creatives to come up with advertising ideas. We put what are called conceptual targets onto our advertising briefs now. So, for instance, in the case of Coffee Mate, it's not going to be a certain age group. It's going to be a beverage hedonist, someone who likes to put creamy coffee into creamer into their cup of coffee. So we're trying to dig a lot deeper than just the broad target audience of someone who's 18 to 49 or older than that.
Let me ask David Klein, who said when I asked him before the panel for a kind of a quick reaction to Neal's thesis, he said, well, I could go either way. So, David, would you either go one way or choose one way?
Yeah, actually, I'm 48 years and 11 months old, so I only have one more month, and I'm trying to watch as much TV as possible in that period. I think I thought Neal did a great job. That was an excellent presentation of the case. So I'm going to play devil's advocate just so you can kind of hear the other side. I will also say, I think I've heard sort of that presentation for the last 2 years coming from CBS sales guys' mouths, who basically have tried, almost literally for 20 years, to make the case that it's total households or even in some cases, in their case of their schedule, literally older viewers who are worth more, and have made no headway. So I brought a couple of things that I thought would be interesting. We did a search in the Ad Age library. Ad Age actually was founded in 1930, so we go back a long ways. This is the earliest article I could find on this topic, and it's dated November, December 1965. And it says, age breakdowns in TV ratings offer advertisers better target. Only NBC's top-rated Bonanza produces widely diversified appeal. In other words, kids all the way up. interestingly, there's another story that came up in 1965 that says, demographic data for TV, not much in demand, TV rating service says. In fact, the agency generating the data, agencies didn't care. That was 1965, and I think what Steve said is probably true, that it was somewhere in the mid to late 70s that they started to really get traction with the agencies, when demographics were considered very sophisticated. As Durk says, in fact, now that's such a broad category, no one really starts the campaign from 18 to 49. It's just too broad. And in fact, it's like if you have a certain kind of speakers, you want to be on a show that's just about this kind of skateboarding, because that's who you want to reach, and then the guerrilla marketing will spread out from there, and the viral marketing, and you'll have guys wearing billboards and all this stuff. I think the issue, though, is how much does it impact what you see and what gets made, and also what Neal's really referring to is that those shows that do skew younger, you can charge a premium for, which is why the networks desire them. When people talk about the illogic of TV, you have to remember, because we tend to think of ourselves, if you're not in the business, as the audience is who TV is for. It is not. The logic of TV, it is logical, because TV exists only, I'm talking network, ad-supported TV, it exists only to serve advertisers. What TV sells is not TV shows, network TV. It sells audiences. Some groups of that audience are more valuable, and it is an interesting question in this day and age why this broad group continues to be the most sought after, because it is just so broad. If you get a show like Friends, or there was a period a few years ago, 5 or 6 years, where everyone decided they had to do a show of 20-something yuppies, normally all white, in an urban environment, because NBC could just charge for the same ratings point. You could charge 2 or 3 times as much money, and I think you actually referenced this in your paper. That remains true. It's true that it's an outmoded concept. It took 15 years for it to get established, and my guess is about 15 years after it means anything, it'll finally start to go away. I think you can make a case that that whole issue, this tyranny of 18 to 49, is becoming increasingly obsolete because of technological changes. Personal video recorders are going to be that's actually the biggest issue that the thinkers, quote unquote, in Hollywood are dealing with, because that really is a sea change. And it's not so much that everyone's going to run out and buy a TiVo or a replay, it's that it's going to come into your house through your cable box, and digital cable will soon reach 60, 65, 70% of the country, and everyone will have TiVo built into that set-top box, and then you don't care what's made, because you're programming your own schedule. And beyond that already, you have these cable niche networks. So I think from the advertiser's point of view, you also have to look at, in primetime TV, the reason those shows are rated higher is that the people with the most money, those are the people they want to reach. And I pulled our list of the top spenders, more by category than companies, and we are talking billions and billions of dollars. So if you look at the top advertising categories in prime time, it's soda, and, you know, it's Coca-Cola and Pepsi, basically advertising companies. They make sugar water, carbonation, and what they really exist to do is create advertising, because otherwise... I also think, by the way, if you're over 50 and you haven't chosen Pepsi definitively, that's a brand you're probably not going to switch. But it's soda, movies, of course, which, as we've already noted, you need to reach young people. That's who the movies are for. Fast food, who over 50 walks into McDonald's to supersize a quarter pounder, you know. Cell phones, beer, credit cards, which you can go either way, but obviously they're trying to get young people who haven't gotten credit cards yet. The truth is that people, with the exception of prescription medicines, which tend to be either broad or older, 9 out of the 10 top spending categories, which, by the way, probably accounts for 60% of all the money spent, they really do need to reach, because of their products, these younger viewers. And I guess the only other thing I would add at this point is, well, 2 things. One is in terms of people like over 50 who are the protagonists of shows. Off the top of my head, I would add West Wing to that. I would add CSI.
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Everybody Loves Raymond, if you include
Raymond is not.
Well, if you include the dad. I mean, they all have this. But he actually
they're
stars
ancillary characters.
West Wing, Frasier, who, if he's not over 50, certainly is looking it. So, in fact, there is more, but I do think you can't discount. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate because I hate most of the stuff stuff they put on TV also paid for that younger demo. But from the advertiser point of view, it does make a certain amount of sense, because the truth is what they're really thinking isn't that they don't want the older people in the audience, and it wouldn't actually go away. They do want them. But they figure they're going to get them anyway. They're not out at clubs. They're not out dancing. They're going to watch something on network TV. Less true now with cable, because you now can choose if you want to watch a cooking show or a lifestyle show, or my wife, who always seems to be. Is it true that the History Channel only shows reel-to-reel World War II footage? It's all World War II all the time on the History Channel.
So Ann Reed, what are your AARP members doing with their money besides putting it in their mattress and buying incontinence?
Well, we're spending that. We control about 40% of the consumer demand in this country. We spend about 80% of the dollars spent in...
Could you move the mic a bit closer? Thank you.
In luxury and leisure travel. And we spend a larger amount of money. We have more disposable income than those people under 50. In fact, 61% of the households in this country with an income over $100,000 are headed by boomers. In the next 10, 20 years, the responsibilities of those over 50 will be decreasing. In other words, the kids will be through school. They will not be the sandwich generation. They will have fewer responsibilities with their parents. And they will have money to spend as long as the economy doesn't keep doing what it's doing. Every 8 seconds, someone turns 50. So you don't care about 50 now. You'll care about 50 eventually.
Anyone's birthday today?
It's the fastest growing demographic. About 39% of the country will be over the age of 50 by the year 2020. We are currently a third of the population of this country. The bottom line in this country is money. And if you want to look where the money is, right now, those over the age of 50 hold the purse strings. So arguably, marketing to the 18 to 49-year-olds, they can buy exactly what you mentioned. One Coke, one supersized burger, one small car, but they're not going to be spending the money the way that the larger population is. I think that the thesis I'd like to put forward takes Neal's thesis a little bit further. He said it was about psychology, and I think maybe the psychology here is that television is hell-bent on self-destruction. And that is indeed a youth penchant, youthful trait, self-destruction. TV is actually, I think, becoming irrelevant to boomers, and that goes back to what was just said. In terms of competition for the boomer dollars, I think that they'll be driven out of the television market. I think that we have more options. I think that older adults right now have many more options. We have DVDs. We have our computers. We have, who would have guessed, the reemergence of book clubs in huge numbers across the country. We have organizations that are very interested in social issues. For one, I have an organization in my town called the Renaissance Society, and they do an amazing number of things with social issues, current events, that bring people out into the real world, if you will. I think the last thing that you should know is that the older demographic does not stay at home. Already, 3 out of 4 55 and olders are still working. They hold steady jobs, or they volunteer steadily, or they are a primary caregiver either for a child or for an older adult. They are not staying at home, turning on their television sets. So I would say that I think that television continues to ignore the older population at their own terminal risk.
Neal, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to pick up on some of the threads you've been hearing. Let's just let a few more play out. So just in following up what has been said so far, David, why don't the companies that sell the products that people over 50 want to buy, why don't they have the clout in the marketplace, in television, say, that the industries you read off to?
Well, I don't think clout is the issue. They for one thing, if you can pay less and reach your audience, you're happy to pay less. The idea that they want to flood into the highest priced shows, I completely agree with what Ann says. I think, in fact, that to a large extent, that older audience is fragmenting even faster than younger. They have other choices, and I think you could go back 40 years in TV, and it's never been that good. There's always a few good shows. There's a lot of mediocre stuff. There are some companies, Sony, for example, is launching a campaign against what they're calling Zoomers, which is sort of the idea being not aging baby boomers, but Zoomers, older people. When you say older, I myself, as I say, am 1 month and I'm 50, and I feel incredibly young, but they are targeting that demographic, 50 plus, let's say, for certain products of theirs. And I think more and more smart marketers are going to do that, but they do have to have a product for those people. There are a million ways to reach people, whether it's through magazines, cable niche shows. I mean, the other thing that's happening is advertisers are not, other than these big guys who simply must reach a mass national audience, they don't want to go through TV necessarily to do their marketing. They want to be much more targeted, much more one-to-one, talking to their customers, so they use their websites, they do events, they want to integrate with the program. You are going to see in the coming years more and more sponsors being involved in the actual development from ground zero of the show, somewhat like the beginning of TV. And in that case, the show will be structured around everybody's goals, the network, the producer, and the advertiser.
Durk, do you ever have a client that you try to persuade to target an older demographic because those people have dollars to spend and it's cheaper to buy ads for them?
Yeah, I mean, I have clients that are doing that right now. I mean, someone brought up the point. We have clients that are doing that right now. I mean, someone brought up the point of with friends that they can charge twice as much for the same ratings number. What I think that's why I don't buy Friends, because it's not a good way to spend my clients' money. I have two different brands that are both Taster's Choice and Fancy Feast, which is cat food. The age of the people that are buying those products are over 50, the median age, and so we go after them, and we buy a lot of TV from those brands. Integration and integrated marketing is what we're all about. We do overall programs, as David was talking about, that comes from one consistent or one core theme, and then we blow it out in every single different communication vehicle that we can, on the websites, through print, through events, PR. That's how we try to reach that target. And what Ann was saying, that 50 plus people are out and doing things. I agree with that, because I'm 37. I have 3 kids. I'm home every night.
We're at the club.
Now I understand.
And there's nothing to watch on TV.
Now I see why there's all those test ads on the network news. Steve, Sohmer, what do you make of the psychological argument that the people in control of our big media companies want the illusion of youth, and so they target their programs to them, even though it's not ultimately in their economic best interests?
Well, when you touched on that a few moments ago, I suddenly flashed on a couple of executives and realized that they were dyeing their hair. Truly. This is very simple. The advertising agencies have the network by the neck with this 18 to 49 routine. There are 2 factors in the price of a television commercial. One is the reach, the delivery, and the other is the money, the dollars per rating point that an advertiser is willing to pay. Well, this is always a constant negotiation. But if you can actually change the basis of the number of rating points and pull it down, so that instead of looking at the total audience and households of the show, you can persuade the networks to look only at the 18 to 49, then a show that does even a 12 rating may only be able to sell for a 4.5 or 5 rating because that's the 18 to 49 component of it. Now, a friend of mine named Paul Isaacson, who was one of the head sales guys at CBS, when I was there, went over to work for a big agency. I want to say Young and Rubicam, but it's of that global stature. And I went to have lunch with him one day, and I said to him, this whole 18 to 49 thing, which is coming upon us, what about all the older people our shows deliver? And Isaacson said, look, we've got the networks by the neck. We pay
I bet he didn't say neck.
What? Well, we've got them by something. We pay them for the 18 to 49, and we get everything else for free. There is something so idiotic about this. And after all the years I spent at CBS, and watched their upfront this year, where annually they go in and talk to the whole advertising community in New York and other cities, and they still talk about households and the overall reach, which makes so much more sense. Now, why the networks have allowed themselves to be backed into this 18 to 49 thing, which totally favors the advertiser. And the advertisers will never let it go. I mean, they'll make it down, get it down to the 18 to 34s if they can, because the deliveries will be even less. I'm absolutely baffled by the networks allowed themselves to be led around by the nose in that way.
I think they're scared. I think that there's so many other communication vehicles out there beyond just network television that they're scared. Look at all the cable channels that are out there that are so much better targeted. That they feel that they need to try to narrow their scope a little bit to a certain place because they need to compete with all these other outlets.
Well, but it becomes sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you look at the bulge in the population, it's moving away from this 18 to 34, 18 to 49, and you're left with a narrower target. Plus, you always have these paradoxes when you're a network executive trying to find a way to reach and sell on watching your shows an audience that isn't there. The biggest advertisers on television are the television networks. Not just a little bigger, by far and away. At ABC, our on-air promotion inventory was worth over $700 million a year, and we had another $100 million in cash. So with an advertising budget for ABC Entertainment, not including sports, not including news.
Was this TV is good?
Well, that was before my time, I'm proud to say. But that's $800 million worth of airtime. And when I was at NBC, when I put the Cosby Show on, and it was a huge success, we had a 30-second promo in Cosby every Thursday night. And I would get a call from time to time from the folks in New York saying, hey, I can sell your 30 for $250,000, which was a ton of money in 1985, 1984. And we would sell that. Now, one of the reasons that Friends sells for such a high multiple is that Thursday night is the big night for advertising for another category of entertainment, the movies. And movie advertising runs heavily on Thursday. It's very high rate advertising, pay a very high CPM as compared to...
That's cost per million?
Cost per thousand. Cost per thousand. And very different from the soap commercials that you see during daytime, who are very low rate payers. So when you see, when you put on, if you can bear it, put on Friends on Thursday night, watch NBC, you will see a raft of commercials for the big movies that are opening. And that's very, very high rate advertising. And that, talking to that demo, that's the heavy moviegoers.
Neal, you've heard a number of reactions, including a presumptive devil. Do you want to pick up on any of the threads?
So much to say for little time.
Go for it. Pull the mic.
Let me say a few things.
Could you pull the mic, Neal? Thank you.
To address what Durk was saying, he used the word dig deeper. But it's a very interesting thing when you look at advertising. They dig deeper, but they don't dig older. The only time that you see older people generally in commercials is either they're buying Metamucil or pharmaceuticals. Everybody over 50 is constipated or sick. But you almost never see anything other than that. And, I mean, commercials, it seems to me, are somewhat, irrelevant in this process. They're relevant in terms of how they drive the programming, but the commercials themselves are not relevant. But the interesting thing is we've been talking here about choices. But in point of fact, one of the most interesting things when you watch television is how little real choice there is. Now, we can have TiVo, and we can have replay, and we can have all of these things, but if they have nothing to record, we are existing, I think, in a kind of limbo. Cable television was supposed to be the antidote for this. Cable television was supposed to be, I describe it in my paper, the smart bomb of TV. Because cable was supposed to be niche-oriented, directed to a smaller audience than broadcast television by definition. Broadcast television, once upon a time when broadcast actually meant something, meant that it was broadcast to a whole bunch of people. Those days are gone. They shouldn't be, but they are. But now let's look at cable, this choice that we're supposed to have. Now, one can go down, run virtually every cable, network, and look at them, and I've made some examples in my paper. But for one example, some of you know I used to be a host at American Movie Classics. Now, American Movie Classics, again, by its very nature, is a network that skews old. Older people will watch older movies. Younger people, and if any of you have, teenagers or younger, you will know this is true, as I do. They won't watch older movies, if you, threaten to pull out their fingernails. As my younger daughter said, Dad, I wouldn't watch American Movie Classics if Josh Hartnett was introducing every single film on the air. So what does American Movie Classics do? Well, first thing it does is it gets rid of the name American Movie Classics. It no longer exists, by the way. It is now called AMC, because if anyone were to hear the word classics, they might think it's, a network that is oriented to the older viewer, which is, death. You don't want that. So now it's
AMC.
It's AMC, lowercase.
The letters
AMC.
thrown up
No
yet.
classics anymore. Now, the programming really hasn't changed all that fundamentally. But now they decide that they want to get a younger audience. And you have to, again, kind of analyze the logic of this. Here is a network showing older films. It now decides that it wants to target a 33-year-old viewer. That's what their new target demographic is. Why even have a station? This becomes a means and end problem. It doesn't even deal with many of the issues we're dealing with here. Why even show old movies if your intention is to reach that young viewer? As I say in my paper, why not become the Bud Light Catfight Girls Network, and then you'll get all sorts of young males who are very desirable, and you don't have to waste time showing old movies, which that younger audience doesn't want to see. Why are the people at AMC in business, one might say? It's a very fundamental question. But let's put AMC aside for the moment. The History Channel. You may have been familiar with the famous edict from the History Channel that we want younger historians now. We don't want older historians. We want younger historians. And I begin actually my paper with a wonderful anecdote, which is absolutely true. Absolutely true. And for those of you who won't read the paper, which is all the younger people in the room, I have a friend who's a documentary filmmaker. He made a film about what is known as aeronautical archaeologist, a person who goes back and looks at old crash sites and determines why the plane crashed. And he found a crash from the 1940s where there were actually survivors. And as he was presenting the material to the History Channel, what they said was, if you find younger survivors, the audience won't like these people. Honest to God, younger survivors from a 1940 crash, because they would be off-putting to the young audience. Court TV, if you read the trades, Court TV last week was just touting their new triumph. they have a median demo of 50. In the last ratings period, they got it down to 48. And they are ecstatic. I mean, now we've got, so you see, it's not just broadcast television, it's everybody chasing the same demographic. All different kinds of programming. Not age-based, pluralistically based. So that if you only want to see 20-year-olds living together and wondering whether they're going to have a romance or not, if that interests you for 9 years, is that how long Friends has been on? 9 years of the same damn story every single week? You can do that. But the rest of us, have other choices which television doesn't provide. Now, a couple of other points. Sohmer raised a very interesting point about CBS, because CBS is the only network, reasonably so, that goes around talking about aggregate viewers. CBS is also, and I say this in my piece, one of the reasons why we have the 18 to 49 demographic, because for 19 out of 20 years, 19 out of 20, and in the 20th year, the difference was only 0.1 of a percentage point. In 19 out of 20 years, CBS was the #1 network in aggregate audience. So guess what? The networks decided, the other networks decided, we never win this thing. CBS wins every single damn year, whether it's All in the Families or whatever. What are we going to do? This is like a football team or a baseball team that loses every single game. Well, NBC and ABC, started with ABC, it moved to NBC, and then it moved on to Fox and UPN and WB, decided, I know something, we don't have to win the game. We don't have to win the game. We can write other rules for this game. Why don't we say that CBS may always win the game and get the largest audience, but, comparing it to a football game, we get more yards than they get. We get more first downs. Our fans are better looking. This isn't only about who wins the game. This is about who gains a lot of yards. Any sports fan would say, what are you, nuts? It's about winning. But if you can change the rules and say, we get a younger audience, it doesn't make any difference that we don't get the largest audience, we get a younger audience. And then Fox can come along and say, you think you've got a young audience, we've got an even younger audience. And then WB can come along and say, you think your audience is young? Ours are barely, they haven't been weaned yet. And then UPN comes along and says, you think you've got a young audience, ours are still in the womb. They're waiting to come out. Imagine your brand loyalty when they pop out. So what you've got is a whole new kind of game here, which does benefit the networks in allowing them to make all sorts of declarations which they otherwise couldn't make. And just one last point about the nature of advertising, which David Klein was talking about. I cite in my piece John Mandel, who's a major media buyer, and one of the things that he talks about is not only the age to which advertising is targeted, but the kind of product that is advertised. There's a big difference between the kinds of products that are targeted to younger viewers, which are beer, soda, chips, that sort of thing, which are low-rent products, and the kind of advertising that is targeted to older consumers for travel and luxury autos and things of that nature. One product area, at least as Mandel describes it, and I'm not an expert in advertising, is declining. That is the so-called packaged goods. The other is increasing. So you've got essentially a situation in which now you are not only targeting people who don't watch television, but you're targeting people who don't watch television with cheap products that are declining in their advertising value in lieu of people who do watch television, who have more money, and who want to spend it on big-ticket items.
That leads me to ask Ann Reed directly off of that point. Have you chosen your soft drink, or are you a beverage hedonist?
We choose wisely. I don't think that the senior population of this country is going to buy into the kind of marketing that they are seen on television for the most part. First of all, they aren't terribly relevant to many of us. This morning, Neal regaled us with some very ageist stereotypes. I would beg to differ with most of those stereotypes. This is the healthiest generation of seniors that we have ever seen, and get ready for what's coming next, because the boomers are dedicated to a healthy lifestyle. In fact, if television is at all worried, which I don't think they are, about their own demise, they might take another look at what was released yesterday. The Journal of American Medical Association said that 43% of diabetes among older women can be prevented if they would just stop watching as much television. They are now recommending that you watch fewer than 8 hours of television a week if you wish to be a healthy person. Well, watch out, because the boomers will tuck that right in with their decaffeinated beverages and everything else that we do to stay fit and trim. I think that television is going to find that the boomer generation is going to reinvent what's going on in this country. They have always prided themselves on being innovative, unusual, outside the norm, and they are inventing a new lifestyle. It is not the lifestyle of the stereotypes that were used earlier in this program. It is a different generation. One thing I wanted to point out is that we no longer put out My Generation magazine. The name of the magazine is AARP. What is AARP? It is AARP. It is not the American Association for Retired Persons. Why? Most of our newer members are not retired. And we're finding that most of our older members are still involved in ways in society that they aren't retiring either. So people say, what is AARP if you're not that, an acronym with no words? We are AARP, that's right. Well, what AARP stands for is the largest, strongest organization for social change in this country. And that's what we are, and that's what we do. And we get it done. So I would say there's going to be a sea change, if you will, in terms of what this country sees coming in the youth orientation that we have had over the past few years. Now, a little irony here is I've spent 20 years of my career marketing to the 18 to 24 cohort, which is the college-age going cohort. Those are my clients. I've done public affairs and marketing for universities. And I can tell you that they are fickle. They are just putting their toe in the water. And most of all, they want to grow up a little bit. So I think the television needs to realize that market will shift on them too.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Nestle is a pretty good example of recognizing the importance of the older target and the importance of wellness that Ann just talked about. For the past 10, 15 years, the Nestle corporate statement has been good food, good life. They changed that this year to the wellness company. And I work within a number of brands within the nutrition division of Nestle, and they are taking products like Carnation Instant Breakfast that have been marketed around the concept of serious morning fuel to people who have active lifestyles that are getting up in the morning and need a quick pick-me-up to keep, in this demographic, and moving away from that, because we learned on that brand that 95% of the sales, of the volume of that product, is from 3% of the population, and that 3% of the population are over 50 years old. So we are no longer running television advertising in local markets, but are now seeking out these people on a one-on-one basis and having a direct conversation with them, and changing the website, changing all the marketing materials, changing the packaging to talk to an older target.
But this is precisely what you're saying is precisely why I say that there's a disjunction between the economics and the cultural product, and that this is a function of the cultural/psychological, syndrome rather than just an economic syndrome. It doesn't change what we see, and what you really care about is not what you buy, or not the advertisements you see, but the television programs you see, the movies you get to see, the CDs you get to buy, and this isn't changing. In fact, this youth culture is self-perpetuating, because anyone in the entertainment business knows that if you are over 40, you might as well be a corpse. And I have many friends in this business, friends who've been writing television programs for years and years and years, and when you cross that 40 threshold, you're dead. You're through. You will not work unless you're already so deeply established and so successful at running a show that they'll give you a couple of chances before they kick you out. Because everyone who gets hired is young at the middle executive level. Everyone they hire is young. And everyone they hire is young. So we can talk, as Durk is saying, about even moving advertising to an older demographic or to a psychographic, which has nothing to do with age. But it doesn't change what we see. And this, I think, reinforces my original hypothesis. It doesn't change what we see because the people who make our movies, who make our television programs, who make our CDs, and I say incidentally, the most counterintuitive and fascinating statistic that I found in my research was that people over 50 buy more CDs than teenagers.
Because they're getting it for free off the internet.
Exactly. They're getting it for free off the internet. But as far as someone who's pressing, a CD in the recording industry, that's all the more reason why you want to target that older audience. But in terms of advertising, you take Bruce Springsteen out of the equation, and virtually all of CD advertising seems to be for younger artists, appealing to a younger, demographic.
Well, at least we're not getting the programming we want. We're still Zoomers buying from the wellness company, which kind of feels good. Kira, that's a handheld mic, isn't it? Would you mind bringing it around to a few people? I hope some of you don't mind if I just ask a few people first for comments before opening it up more broadly. Bob Dowling, as I listen to this conversation, one thing that seems to be a sub-theme is that mass media is ended, that everything's going to be niche media. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, whether that's the case, or if you don't care and want to comment on something else, you should feel free to.
Well, it's interesting to me to listen to this panel. First of all, to David's point, I think most media is about delivering the audience. And when I look at this audience, I can tell the demographics of this audience. It's all white. It's mostly male. It's probably more older, skews this way, and
youthful.
But youthful, yes. But I really wonder, and I'd like to ask this question, maybe some of the panelists to comment on it. There's a famous joke that's been out around about the internet, and it's these two dogs sitting in front of a terminal, and one of them is saying to the other, "Fortunately, on the internet, no one knows I'm a dog." And what I don't know about this panel, yourself included, Marty, is what your interests are. And to me, I think media is headed towards common interest rather than characteristics. Because in delivering an audience, and that's what I've done for most of my career, you deliver the audience, you define the audience by its characteristics, its age, its income, its color, its nationality, its region, things of this nature, and then you bring that audience to someone who has a common interest in that audience as an advertiser, and the advertiser exploits that relationship to reach that audience. But now, because we're no longer in a media world that's one-directional, where magazines, books, television, it's all one-directional, and that people who send it out say this is what it is, this is when you get it, and so you watch it or you don't watch it, you listen or you don't listen. The internet is two ways. It comes back. People are seeking each other out, finding each other based upon what their interest is, and their interest transcends their characteristics. So to Ann's point, when people travel today, you go out on a ship, people who are on a cruise to somewhere in Mexico, they're old, they're young, they're black, they're white, they're Hispanic, they're not, they're this, they're that, but they're all interested in the same thing. And I think this is one of the areas where media is really stuck, because people are seeking each other out based upon their interest, not their characteristics. And interest is a much more powerful mechanism for people to communicate with one another. And if the advertiser can get themselves into the middle of that, they will have a smaller audience for sure, but a much more committed audience for what is consistent with what it is they're offering. And so
I wonder if somebody might comment on that.
Anyone want to take that?
Go ahead.
Well, I absolutely think that advertising and marketing cuts across a lot of lines, and that you do have to start with an interest-based market. Niches can be very small, but they can deliver the loyalty that advertisers have been looking for. For instance, you're looking at a person who is not very interested in taking a cruise, something I'm just not very interested in. But when a cruise was marketed to me in an area of interest that I have, which is classical music, then I was interested because I knew everybody else on that ship, which was a small one, would have an interest in Germanic classical music. So, no, I cared, no, there could be young people, no, what mattered to me was my interest base. And that's the only time that I have done that. So I think that you're absolutely right when you say it's going to cut across ages. Talking about health marketing, and you can break all of those stereotypes. Right now, my own father is 85 years old. He walks 14 miles a week, and he has been running the Bay Breakers Marathon for 30 years. That means he began in his 50s. You need to market health products to him, sports, athletics. I mean, he's your REI guy. He's 85 years old. Don't write him off. So very much you need to get rid of the age stereotype and look at the interest stereotype.
David, you want? Yeah, so I agree, and of course, one of the cutting-edge areas of media and television that companies do now when they do these shows is they're looking, they almost all come attached to some internet presence. Some are very passive, but the more advanced ones are looking to sift through whatever viewership comes to the show and direct them to an area where they go deeper and deeper and deeper depending on their interest level. I think to some extent this conversation sort of gets overly general. There's multiple tracks of agencies, clients, media, and what they're trying to accomplish. On the high end, we really have this 18 to 49 course. They're really talking about big mass market advertisers, people who must reach across the country, whether that's Procter & Gamble or General Motors or Coca-Cola, on a level more where Durk's dealing, they're not. Now, the foods would be shifting out of TV. The truth is the networks would love to get that money, but on the other hand, it's a very small percentage of their money that's going into alternative media, which frankly probably needs the money more than the TV networks anyway. So you can't, it's important not to overgeneralize. There is clearly, I was a TV critic for 7 years before I jumped into business media, so, you know, throughout history, when TV started, it was going to be this great force for good. Of course, it was not. There's a lot of direct, some great moments and some terrible ones. All the way through today, I think the key with niche cable networks is that they do focus on people's interest levels, and so a food network, I don't think it's true that there's no choices. I mean, clearly there's always going to be people at every network who want the money from the agency and will do anything to get it, including saying, when I say older woman, I mean 31, or any younger survivors. There's plenty of idiots in every business. That's indisputable. But at the same time, you can certainly, at any age, go home and watch plenty of TV that's pretty good. A lot of it won't be on network, but whether it's Sopranos on this end, if that's what you like, or you just want to keep the Food Network on, or the Home and Garden Network, or Lifetime, or Oxygen, or History, or the Independent Film Channel. AMC, I agree with you, they've totally ruined, but Turner Classic Movies does a great job. They're not going to get a younger audience, but they deliver to their audience what they promise. There is plenty of choice and diversity. The psychological issue is interesting because, generally speaking, no matter what your age, people want to be associated with youth and vigor and health. It is almost becoming not an age issue as a state of mind issue. And actually, AARP is an interesting example because even there, with a very clear focus for most of their history, they just changed the name of Modern Maturity briefly to My Generation, partly because they were also fighting for ad dollars, and the perception had grown over the years that was a magazine focusing on people who were too old, quote unquote. So they tried to focus back. No, it's boomers, they're younger, and they changed it to My Generation. Now, I hadn't heard that it had changed again,
AARP.
the AARP, which is just a letter.
Cats
It's not
are
even
small.
retired, but you see that even that organization.
Pure branding, though.
Easier to say.
It's a pure branding move.
Right, and the branding point, again, was don't think of us as an old skewing organization. Think of us as a young at heart organization. So it affects across the board, not just TV networks, but everything. Now, that brings you back to Neal's point. It's only because the agencies insist on that younger skewing that in AARP and everyone else does that. As I say, I think that is ending, and the more sophisticated clients and agencies, and it takes a long time, and it's a generational shift, I think, not a, oh yeah, this is stupid, let's change next week, because it's billions of dollars, relationships that go back 20 years, but it's clearly shifting to exactly what Bob was saying, to interest-based. What you want to reach are the people, the old 80-20 rules, 20% of your customer base divides 80% of your revenue. Sure. But the tools of analysis that the advertisers and the agencies have now, I'm sure Durk can speak to this, are incredible in terms of drilling down and finding ways to move people through steps to where you want to go. Doesn't mean that you're... By the way, the one thing I do agree with, they are incredibly self-destructive. Seems to me all the media industries are. The music industry, of course, now legendary for their inability to tap into the fact that all their core young audience wants to get the music this way. Yes. And a large percentage of them would probably even pay someone, and they refuse to find a way to do that. And the Chicago Tribune just ran a big article that, in fact, a lot of these labels are now deliberately looking to the 45-plus market to really drive sales, and those people will pay for CDs. Mm-hmm. They don't want to go through the hassle of downloading them. So you see, in all these industries, it is, I think, slowly starting to change.
Let me pick up on this theme and ask John Connolly a question. Kira, if you wouldn't mind. Self-destructive and idiotic were two words that we've heard today that characterize the industry. And how many thousand members depend on these industries? Do you find their business practices not smart and designed to maximize profit, but in the way that we've been talking about today, self-destructive?
Inevitably and always. Thanks. AFTRA has 80,000 members across the country, and the Screen Actors Guild has another 100,000 members, and we're in the process of consolidating the unions after a mere 50 years of discussion. So the idiots are not just on the other side of the table. Thank you for the opportunity, Marnie. Steve, as a television actor, I am urged to dye my hair all the time. In reference to your earlier comment,
no more of it, Marty.
But I'm too cheap to actually have it done professionally, like my wife does. And I bought one tube of Grecian formula, which stared at me from my medicine cabinet until the expiration date passed, because I was too afraid to use it because I'd seen one too many pink-haired gentlemen in my time and didn't want to join that crew. And if there is a movement towards ownership of television shows by advertisers, what happens when Merck Medco starts producing the next great medical drama, Glaxo? There are real serious implications in this for creators and for audiences. And one of the things that may be driving this entire process is the fundamental change in ownership of the media industries. No longer do you have movies competing with television, competing with cable, competing with radio, competing with music. Now you have Viacom. You have Disney ABC. And each one of these individual areas are simply revenue sectors of larger corporations. And so what is the interplay there in terms of the drivers that create diversity and different programming? I think it's a real question. And finally, and I appreciate taking this time, I'm sorry to go on so long, I just wanted to mention that, Steve, every single programming example you gave when you spoke are examples of quality after programming, and I thanks for the tip of the hat.
Let me call on one more person for a comment, and then maybe open it up further. Sarah Pillsbury, did I notice your hand moving?
Yes, but I wasn't actually. Oh, I guess I
Here's a mic for you. Sarah Pillsbury, producer of films from Desperately Seeking Susan to 8 Men Out to a lot of quality products in between.
Yes, to how to make an American film, a woman's over 49 movie, as well as under, we hope. But I wanted to address the question just of kind of what we actually get to see. I have friends who are in marketing for studios, and they say, well, the audience is happy. Look, they go to the movies and they buy tickets. But I know that I have a 14-year-old son and an 18-year-old daughter who are being, in a way, successfully marketed to. But it seems that their only real pleasure is getting out of the house, being with their friends, eating candy, and then coming out of the theater and criticizing the film and the people in it. But because they have only, had these years of, every once in a while they get to see a really good film. I mean, my son was running around the house the other day trying to find the DVD of The Pianist. He wanted to give it to a friend. I mean, they can recognize quality when they see it, but they're so used not to getting it that they will just go out to get the cinematic experience. And so the movie business seems to be sort of in their thrall. And how do we change what we see? I hear, frankly, I listen to the talk of advertisers taking over TV shows, and I see the problems that you say can develop. But on the other hand, I think that I wonder if they wouldn't be smarter. I wonder whether the hallmarks of the world aren't smarter than the people we have running the networks right now.
I know.
Certainly, I think pretty much everybody on the panel is smarter than the people that are running the networks right now. And I guess I want to ask, really all of you, but Durk and David, how do you, you seem much brighter and more in terms of how you reach the demographic over 49, and what kind of suggestions would you have for the movie industry? One of the problems as a movie producer is there really is no, even if you can say, I can make it for $3 million, I can deliver it for $3 million, the studios will say there is really no such thing as a low budget movie anymore, because I'm still going to have to spend $20 million marketing the movie. So they don't care. They don't care what you can deliver the product for. So how do independent producers, who have quality program that want to reach out to, not just the plus 49, but the discerning 18-year-olds, and reach those people around their interests. Anyway.
Durk, you want to take that?
Boy, that's a tough one. I would say stronger convictions and less focus groups. It goes back to what you said about artists. I work with creative people. That's one of the things I love about my job. And a lot of marketers and movie companies rely on focus groups and quantitative studies and spending tons and tons of money on research, sometimes spending more money on research than they do on the actual creative product itself to answer. And basically they're doing it because they're scared and they don't want to go out on a limb with something that's creative that might fail. I think, we are pushing our clients from, this is less about demographics and more about creativity, for ideas, for wonderful pieces of film, for great ideas and great communications that often scare our clients, scare marketers. But I think that once you are able to get something out there that is maybe more creative, that's more risky, less safe, there are great rewards to that. So I have stronger convictions in your creativity and doing your job and making choices, and rely less on outside forces and outside opinions.
I also think you need to do more cross-marketing, and by that I mean cross-generational marketing. I think that a lot of products which are targeted to one generation actually could have appeal to multiple generations. I have a mid-20s techie son, And I think about the times that he has invited me, his mother, to go to movies with him. We went to see the Two Towers. We've seen the first 2 issues of the trilogy. And why he can explain it all to me, we get into long, in-depth conversations about what Tolkien means. I'm fascinated by some of the languages. The cross-generational movie, if it's marketed right. I think it's been marketed right. I think the same thing is true with other things. He invited me to see Spirited Away. Okay, that's a cross-generational experience. That is an enormous experience for the Western mind if it begins to understand at all what that movie is about. But we're not marketing it right in this country. At least we're not marketing it the way I think it should be marketed. So I think that part of it is having those blinders on to that 18 to 49-year-old demographic and thinking, well, this movie appeals to them, instead of thinking, who all can we make this movie appeal to? It goes to pluralism. It goes to diversity. It goes to more is better. Anytime you marginalize a section of the population, I can't see you doing anything but economic harm to yourself.
David? Spirited Away is an interesting example because the marketing's been virtually non-existent and the distribution's terrible. They actually, I was hoping to come out on DVD. I saw it on its first run. And now they've re-released it to exactly the same minimal number of theaters, even in Chicago. It's very hard even to find a place for showing. So
wasn't it the largest grossing film in Japan?
In Japan, it's a bizarre movie to Western eyes, but lovely. I mean, in its own way. So I have a son. We all have these 20-year-old sons.
Yeah, 20-something.
And yet we're so young.
Yes. Amazing how that works.
Who's an anime nut. And he went with me because he knew I wanted to see it, but clearly it wasn't enough sword and fighting and Japanese honor, you know. So he sat there to accommodate me. He sat this movie, so go figure. I'll tell you the one thing I wrote down when I first was in this panel, and it hasn't really quite come up, but I'll bring it up here, which is I do think one of the changes is in the movie business, which I can't speak to nearly as well as the TV business, obviously, and the TV business. One of the big changes the last 10 or 15 years is, it seems to me, it's all run, I know this is sort of a cliche, but it's all run by almost pure businessmen. So even in the TV industry, where you used to have the Grant Tinkers or the Brandon Tartikoffs or the Fred Silvermans even, God forgive me, okay, going back, people who, whatever reason, it was their gut, and they said, I'm going to make this because I want to make this. There was some level at which, yes, I want to make money, even William Paley in his own way. I want to make money, but I also want to make something that I'm proud of or God's proud of. And I am hard-pressed looking through the industry now, the TV industry mostly, again, because I'm just more familiar with it. No one's doing that. What's the hottest thing going? Reality programming. Well, this is purest of pure crap, if you ask me. And it is demographically skewed to some extent. I mean, but before that, they had how to become, what was it called? Do you want to be a millionaire? And so ABC gets it's a gimmicky game show. That's fine. Nothing wrong with it. And so what happens? They put it on every night of the week and practically destroy themselves. And meanwhile, what are they developing? When there is a big hit show of some sort, even a West Wing from a few years ago, there what you have is someone like Aaron Sorkin. You've got Dick Wolf with Law and Order. You have a producer who is in it, who's an artist, or at least accommodates artists, and even they now have to give up their ownership to some extent to get it on the networks. The issue of media diversity is huge, a much bigger issue than this. The tyranny of the fact that, 5 companies own everything, including all the local stations, the radio stations. And the issues that are kind of underneath all this, media diversification, and frankly, the one we're not talking about, which is, we can argue about ageism and stage that age, but what's completely gone into TV is any multicultural diversity. Right. There simply is no, and when you talk about the U.S. is going to be one of the youngest countries in the world for the foreseeable future. The average median age is going to be still in the mid-30s, even 10 years from now, not because we're depopulating ourselves, but because of massive immigration, because we still remain a beacon to so many people around the world. But those people don't necessarily speak English. They're not, the Caucasian stock that sort of runs the media. So what do you do with, you have a large, broad-based, multicultural Latino population, of course, African-American population, a growing Asian population, plus all sorts of other cultures that don't even rise up to that level of recognition. TV doesn't address any of them.
And the
The
youth
WB and UPN will address the urban audience, but apart from that, it is just, you might have an Asian character as a sidekick. You know, I mean, never mind how many 50-year-olds are running shows. The real issue for American culture, I think, is not so much necessarily the age thing, because older white people can always find something to watch that they like. But there's nothing representing so many other cultures.
Well, I think they're both
issue.
issues. But I think here, one of the things I think that it leaves me less hopeful is that we often think of the American media as being demand-driven, unless you're a Marxist. And I think that, you know, what we're seeing here is that it isn't necessarily demand-driven.
Well, it's the advertiser's demand. It is driven by
I'm talking about
advertisers.
movies now, I'm talking about CDs, I'm talking about magazines, I'm talking about newspapers, I'm talking about the media, not only the advertiser-supported media.
Right.
And what we're seeing is that, you know, it's delivery-driven every bit as much as it is demand-driven.
Right.
And when you see something that is diverse and interesting and good, and we have an example of it, HBO. I mean, HBO is an example of a network that is non-advertiser supported, that is quality driven, that is driven, as Durk said, by ideas. Those of you who've read Alan Ball talking about 6 Feet Under, you'll know that, you know, the executives at HBO kept on saying, more, push it farther, do more, make it more interesting. How far can you go? We want something that you could not see on any broadcast network. Of course, as you know, at NBC, you know, Charles Wright, you know, responded to The Sopranos by saying, well, of course, they can do that because, you know, they can have nudity and language that we can't use. This, we talked about stupidity earlier. I mean, this is an obtuseness that is beyond comprehension. Does he really think that the difference between the junk he puts on NBC and The Sopranos is that they can have nudity and different language? I mean, is he such an idiot that he doesn't see the difference in sensibility between what HBO is doing and what he's doing at his lousy network? But the issue, and it's a very important issue, and it leaves us, I think, don't hold back. No. And it should leave us, you know, not particularly hopeful. You know, you can be hopeful if you're demand-driven and hoping that, you know, the audience will get older. Ultimately, to use Jonathan Bee's, as I say in my paper, his metaphor, you know, the barge will turn, however slowly, and they'll finally recognize more diverse audiences, both in terms of age and in terms of you know, ethnicity and race and whatever. But here's a reason not to be hopeful at all. Because the same damn people are going to be running all of these things. Well, they change, but ultimately they change within the same parameters. They won't be black. They won't be Latino. They won't be old. They will be the same damn people. The faces may change, but ultimately it's the same damn people.
I'm not so sure about that.
And, well, things get much worse before they get worse.
And
this is one of the iron laws of culture.
I'm going to argue with that just a little bit, because one of the things that I have in my background is I come from Sacramento. And one of the things about Sacramento, which most people don't care much about, is Time Magazine has named it the most integrated city in America. Come to my campus, where I work. Come watch the world as it's going to be when these kids go out in the world. Come watch the changes. This is a society that has changed enormously over the past 8 to 10 years. Just in terms of diversity is the reality that these young people are growing up with, that they expect, that they demand, that they find in their workplace. One of my sons is indeed a minority in his workplace. Most of the people are immigrants from other countries. He's really brushing up on his language skills other than English, because this is the reality of what our world is bringing us. And I think that if we're going to be relevant at all, we have to recognize that. And I think that, as I said, I really believe that television is going to go away because it is going to make itself irrelevant. And if it is not going to change the decision makers at the top, with these bright young folks coming out, and some of the older ones who are out there already, it's not going to survive.
Let me see if we can squeeze in a few questions or comments from the audience. Is anyone passionate about, Kira, would you mind bringing the mic around?
Good morning. My name is Laura Bowling. I've spent most of my career working both for big advertising agencies, Ogilvy and Mather in New York, and the past 6 years working for corporate strategic planning at the Walt Disney Company and Vivendi Universal. I think we have a huge problem on both sides of the fence that Neal has underscored. But I call it sort of the cookie cutter syndrome. I think most of the executives...
Is that on still?
Pardon me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Forgive me. I think we have what I describe as sort of a cookie cutter problem, or a getting soft or letting go of creativity. On the advertising agency side, no advertising agency wants to give up making 30-second commercials. That's what their bread and butter is. That's what they know. They're terrified of the internet. They're terrified of trying to do something that's diverse. And although Durk underscored the idea of integration, it is something that has been slow to be pulled together. There are 4 major companies that own all of the advertising agencies in the entire world, and there are 5 major media companies. They're all run by people who are north of 50, who make more than $1 million a year, who are so set they came of age 15 or 20 years ago, and they don't know how to do it any differently. And they're terrified to let go of the reins to let new blood sort of push forward. And I think it underscores the quality problem that the lovely lady who's a producer in that corner and John Connolly from AFTRA are saying as well, which is, wait a second, we as an American populace are bright, educated, we do want to be young, we are diverse, we are all of those things, but how are we going to break up this cookie-cutter dynamic that exists between the advertising agencies and the corporate media conglomerates?
Anyone on the panel want to comment on that?
This is people who, well, in this community, of course, I guess everybody would know, but obviously you could hear the same kinds of warnings when the movie studios were used, and everyone warned it would get cracked up, and of course it actually happened. And now you're hearing all these warnings of the big TV, the model, the paradigm that broadcast TV in particular works by is heading for crack up, and in fact it is. It's taking a little bit longer to happen. The same with the agencies, by the way. There are 4 or 5 big holding companies that own almost all agencies. They are not having good years. The clients are not happy. The 30-second spot issue is true, and of course, for that reason, many people are switching from, they're going to the media planners being the driver of the campaign, not the account people, not the creative people who always want to make commercials. Instead, the campaign made billboards with a little TV spot. The system is heading for a crash. It's kind of going through that period. It might be 2 years, it might be 5 years. It is in the process of a really significant change, not a minor change like shifting from total household to 1939, but a really different way in how TV is produced, sold, and distributed from the advertiser point of view and the network point of view. It would help if the FCC would actually do their job. Since that's not likely to happen, it's just going to happen because of economic forces. So the answer to all these people who are clinging on their jobs is they're going to get, it happens every 20 or 30 years. It happened in the 70s, the movie business in Hollywood completely transformed briefly. And then a new kind of sort of tyranny of mediocrity comes in because the blockbuster is formed. And as great a director as Steven Spielberg is, you can argue that whole Spielberg-Lucas method of making movies is just ruined. You used to make movies that were just for normal people. And you look at them like the Big Fat Greek Wedding, which was a relatively low-budget movie, but these movies are so rare when something like that happens. It's not a big studio movie, and it breaks out and people find it. But the answer is it's happening. I just think it's a matter of time.
This is a fundamentally, and I don't think we've hit this enough, although I've tried to, it's an aesthetic problem. I mean, the source is psychological, I believe, but the problem is aesthetic. And the culture is driven in one direction, and that is, it's not as if our newspapers are going to have longer articles and become more intelligent, or our magazines, the new editor at Rolling Stone came in and his first edict was shorter articles. None of these long William Greeter articles or Tom Wolfe pieces, short stuff. The thrust of this culture, aesthetically, is all in one direction, and it's not going to reverse course. I don't believe. I believe that things will change in other ways, in advertising, in the way, in methods of ownership, all of those things will change. But as it affects you, where you live, what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, everything is in one direction. And anyone who lives within the media environment and works within the media environment understands that. Shorter, faster, brighter, louder. These are the things. Dumber, if you want to consider all these things, the equation adds up to that. It's not necessarily true, but it usually is true. I mean, I wrote a couple of years ago. I write a lot for the New York Times, and I submitted a piece to the New York Times, and the editor told me, you know, we're instituting a new policy here that think pieces. We really don't want think pieces over 1,000 words now.
Exactly.
Now, this is the New York Times, but you can find this everywhere. And this is why I'm saying that to be hopeful, even as the barge moves, even as things change, to see that there will be any ultimate trickle-down effect on aesthetics in this country, and the kinds of movies we see, and the kinds of television programs we watch, and the kinds of CDs we listen to, I think it's not a very hopeful situation. But I do, let me just remark with one small bit of hopefulness. And it is the motion picture industry, oddly enough. Nothing is perfect. But the motion picture industry has done something. They've moved the barge a little bit, aesthetically speaking. And that is, they realized, you know, some 7 or 8 years ago, that while the thrust of their product was going to be to teenage males, or 18 to 24-year-old males, the Spider-Man audience, and that's how they're going to make their big money, that's the casino on which they're putting down their chips, they also realized that there was this growing older audience, and that they could make product for that audience and make money by boutiquing the studios, by creating things like Miramax and October Films and Focus and Artisan and Sony Classics, and they could make less expensive films that clearly are not going to attract a teenage audience, but that are directed toward an older audience, that are creatively driven, not demographically driven, but driven by the passion of a filmmaker. And that gives us small cause, it seems to me, for hope that some people begin to get it. And it's an aesthetic change. Not demographic, not advertising, not economic, but aesthetic.
The cadence of your remarks, Neal, was just perfect because it's the transition to asking each of you for a final thought. So, David, let's start with you.
Well, it always seems to the current generation that things are going to hell in a handbasket. It could only get worse from here. I will remind everyone that in the 1960s, Newton Minow made a famous remark of TV as a vast wasteland, which in fact I would argue was truer then than now. I think TV, from the viewer perspective, is vastly improved. They have many, many, many more choices than they had then, and many of the primetime fiction shows, non-reality shows, are actually better, smarter, wittier, and better. So I'm much more optimistic going forward that, in fact, we're heading towards a kind of a interesting breakup revolutionary period that will, in fact, allow a lot of new blood in and exciting things to happen. And the whole 18 to 49 age issue, I think is actually going to, over the next 4 or 5 years, just sort of fade away as the whole industry reorients itself.
Keith? What's happening in the television business, and you can have as your benchmark the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, is that we are moving more and more toward forms of pay television. When the HBO was discussed, it was overlooked that you pay for it. I don't know how much you pay a month for it, but it's a serious amount of money. And what I think we're going to see, Fred Silverman's name was mentioned. Every time I have lunch with Fred Silverman, he says, in 10 years, there won't be any television network. Has been telling me this for maybe 30 years, but he is getting to where his prophecy may come true. I think there's going to be much more diversity. You may have to pay for it. If you want to watch Days of Our Lives and NBC doesn't carry it, they may charge you 25 cents a week to watch it. If the folks who make Days of Our Lives could get 25 cents a week from every viewer, they'd actually make more money than they do selling the show and distributing it via NBC. And I'm working for some guys now who have something called the Outdoor Life Network. And they're a bunch of New York suits whose office is in Connecticut, and their #1 rated show is, guess what, rodeo bull riding. It's a 0.7 rating. So you may have to spend 50 cents a month or something to bar, because he thought we'd be able to use it to send over to places where we can't go ourselves or environments that are too dangerous, and that it would bring us back the images of what was happening. Indeed, when this war started, I said, that's television, because we're there. And it is a great medium for that reason. And it mustn't be judged by the standards of Hollywood motion pictures. The pictures on television aren't as good as the pictures you'll see in the movies. The music on television isn't Mahler and Brahms. And the shows on television don't come up to the standard of my boy Shakespeare. But indeed, you can, from time to time, find something like The Cosby Show, the highest-rated comedy of all times in modern times, completely minority, and it breaks through and involves the whole nation. I think we're going to see, unfortunately, less and less of that, but more of the sense you get when you go into a bookstore or a video shop and just can pick and choose whatever you want to watch right then. Between the TiVo, 500 channels, I think it's got a great future, very different in economic shape from what it is now.
Yeah. Just 2 quick points for those of you who are in the business and for those of you in the room who are headed into the business. I would ask you to choose your words with care. Words are very, very powerful. We learned that in this country during the civil rights era. It's another time to think about those words. We use the words youthful when indeed what we mean is energetic or enthusiastic or thoughtful. And I would ask you to watch your words when you're speaking about youth. We are a youth culture, but that's a word. What we really are is a high-energy culture that is enthusiastic about this country. We are committed. We have a lot of values that are the same. We are not necessarily a youth culture. So I'd ask you to think about words. The second thing I would like to mention is I do believe that the Internet is changing our lives, all of our lives. 10 years ago, wasn't there. Now if I've got 2 or 3 free hours in the evening, I'd rather go fuss around on the Internet where I can get what I want in the depth that I want. If I want that much, I can get that much. If I want that much, I can get that much. I find that is far more appealing, and it is appealing cross-generationally. I was talking to the wife of the mother, of a congressman in Sacramento the other day, asked her how her computer stuff was doing, and she said, well, I've just decided there's nothing wrong with the computer. I simply need to upgrade the user again, so I'm enrolled in more classes. She's 83 years old. So, the world is changing, and make it a better place, please.
Durk? It's funny, I found it interesting that what we came down to at the end of this was a conversation about creativity, which is great, because working in an advertising agency is a creative place to be, and you're supposed to be there to make money too, and we're trying to make money for our company, and we're trying to make money for our clients, for their brands, and have them be successful. But you're right, what you said before, it's harder and harder and harder to come up with ideas or sell ideas to our clients that lend to great creative. And if you consider yourself to be a creative person, the industry that I work in, I think, is a great one to go into. But we have to fight against sort of the creativity versus dollars argument all the time. The other point that came up at the end that I think is also really important is this idea of cultural diversity. And it's something that I'm try to be very in tune with, and it goes back to my days working in the beer industry. And it's a diverse culture that we do live in. I think, unfortunately, a lot of the people that are making decisions at these companies, and whether it's television studios or marketers, are white males, and something that advertising agencies need to do a better job of, and marketers need to do a better job of, is showing a diverse culture, showing a diverse audience and appealing to diverse audiences. And I think that's going to become even a bigger subject than the demographic age group, and something where there's huge opportunities for success within diversity.
Neal, one last comment?
I'll just tell you a story. When I got the idea about the tyranny of 18 to 49, and as you know, I've said this, I think it's the single most important characteristic, and I disagree with it. I think it will remain, because dealing with racial issues is so sensitive. It's much easier to deal with youth, and so I think youth will continue to prevail as the major force, not diversity. I think the television and the motion picture executives think they are being diverse right now when they put out Head of State or Bringing Down the House. I think that's their idea of diversity. I'm doing a Chris Rock movie, once a year. But when I got this idea, I thought this is very important, and I never solicit pieces. Unfortunately, at the stage of my career where I don't have to, but this is a piece I wanted to write and have published. And so I had my agent contact Atlantic and Harper's. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, this tells you something about the aesthetics we were discussing. I couldn't think of another publication in the United States of America, a country of 280 million people, who would even think of publishing a piece like this. Would even think of it. That's what our culture has really come to. And this is my business. I write for magazines all the time. I've written for almost all of them, all the major ones. And we got a response from Atlantic Monthly. Don't see the relevance of this. Don't see why this is important. We got a response from Louis Lapham, the editor of Harper, saying, I love your writing, but I don't see how our readers would necessarily be interested in the idea of an 18 to 49 demographic cohort. In short, everything is so deeply implicated in this culture, including two of the leading so-called intellectual publications, so deeply implicated in the 18 to 49 demographic, which is precisely the audience, the readership that they want, that they didn't want to address the subject. This is the thick wall that I hope, this morning, we have managed to puncture a very small hole in. But I will tell you, as I said earlier about motion pictures, it's a very small hole. And not much is going to get out there because it serves the psychological needs of everyone in the media, in my estimation, to continue the tyranny under which we live.
Bob Dowling, a moment ago you asked about my interests, and in my house I have two children who are pre-teenagers, and so my interests are driven by their interests. So in recent years I have been very interested in Beanie Babies, Pokemon, Mary-Kate and Ashley, Touched by an Angel, Neopets, The Simpsons, South Park, and now M&M. So our next event in that spirit will be called the Tyranny of 10 to 12. Please join me in thanking our panel for a terrific day.